some real moms sharing the unedited truth, finding joy in the chaos, and reminding each other we're in this together. This is episode one of Geriatric Mom. I actually went back and forth for quite some time on what the first episode of this should really be, but to become a mom, the journey here was definitely difficult. So the first topic is a hard topic, infertility. But I think it's an important one, and I think it's one that doesn't get addressed enough, and how hard it is for people, and how much it can literally just destroy your soul, when if you want kids and you can't have kids, for women and men. So personally, my journey here, I've pretty much just been in three major relationships my entire life. One when I was really, really young, and then I was in one for over 13 years. Um, and then with my husband now, and we've been together for almost 5 years. And I really didn't think I could have kids. And, when we met, I definitely let him know that. Um, but when I was really young, I was 17 years old. Um, I had a positive pregnancy test. I couldn't remember when my last period was. Um, it was a whole shenanigan, and I kind of went back and forth on, should I get an abortion? Should I not? What am I going to do? Because that relationship had not been going great, but when you're that young, of course, it's not going to. Um, so I ended up having a miscarriage. Within a few weeks of finding that out. And that was really hard. Um, and I felt like it was my fault because I had even been considering doing something like having an abortion. But at that time, I definitely was not in a great place. So I didn't know what to do. But I definitely always felt like even that, just having that thought of having an abortion was going to, um, you know, could have been the cause of the miscarriage. And I felt like it was my fault. So that was really hard. And then after that, if my period was late and I took a pregnancy test and they'd be positive, it'd be, within a few weeks that I'd end up having some sort of period. I couldn't even make it to the appointments. They do like the initial pregnancy test, and then you have to go back later for an ultrasound. And I never even made it to that point. That was really difficult. And I always just tortured myself that, it was my fault. Something's really wrong with me. And I was never going to have a family. So that was extremely hard. And then the last time had even happened was when I was 25 or 26 years old. And then since that time, I didn't have, um, even any positive pregnancy tests or anything after that point. So I really thought it's just something that my body didn't really want to do. Well, I met my husband, and he knew that that was something that I really wanted. I wanted a family. I really do love kids and, everything. But the issue was when we met, I was 31 years old. I had turned 32 shortly after we met, and just being older, and being a new relationship, I was just honest with him that I did, if he wanted more kids, that I might not be that person for him. But he was super great, like he always is, and it'll happen. It'll happen. Well, I started the company I'm at now, and they actually offered, um, assistance with infertility treatment, because there's no way that stuff gets so expensive. There's no way, um, I could have afforded that on my own. So I didn't even know that was a benefit they had until I had started there. Um, and at that point, I'm 34 years old. So started that whole process. My husband actually had been seeing his provider and had been taking HCG hormone, replacement. That's supposed to be something that can help increase sperm count. So he had been doing those injections for a really long time. And then he had testing done, and then I also, had started testing as well. And some of those treatments are not exactly comfortable. I know the one where they have to put, like a catheter into your cervix, and it goes into, your uterus so that they can flush dye into your fallopian tubes. Oh boy, that was probably one of the most painful experiences I've ever had in my whole life, and definitely would not want to do that again. But the um, lady performing the test, the nurse practitioner, she was funny. She said that a lot of times that, if there was like a blockage or something, then the eggs would be able to release, and a lot of times people would end up getting pregnant after they had testing done like that. So needless to say, after having all those tests done, there was no real reason why I couldn't get pregnant. I do have a thyroid disorder. I have Hashimoto's. It's generally pretty well controlled. But that definitely affects things and can make it harder to get pregnant. And then stress throughout your life, which previous to this relationship, life was pretty difficult for the most part. But once I met my husband, everything just kind of leveled out and has been great. But I had all those tests done, and the provider didn't really find anything wrong with me. And Chris had like a couple or had a repeat sperm count done, and his count had came way up. So we were gonna actually start IVF. And I actually thought like my period was coming. I was really emotional. My husband's like, I think you should take a pregnancy test, and I couldn't believe it that it was positive, and I was just so worried the entire time that, everything that had happened previously was gonna happen again. And it never did. I feel like we're just so thankful that everything turned out the way it did. Because we really had, like, little complications throughout the entire pregnancy. Um, but that whole journey can be really hard, and I had told my husband I didn't want to keep trying after I turned 35 because there's just a point, there's other people that have kids when they're older and stuff. I'm just um, not one of those individuals that really wanted to have kids when I got older. The plan, if I had had it my way, I would have had kids when I was 25, 26 years old. Um, at least two. So I wasn't really planning on having kids as I got older. So, um, like I said, very little issues with the pregnancy. Pregnancy was really uncomfortable for me, but I'm so thankful that I have my son now. But I really feel like this is a topic that I want to hear from other people about too, like how they handled it. I know those miscarriages were really hard for me, and I really beat myself up every single time anything like that happened. I just really felt like there was something really wrong with me. Um, and it was just so hard and emotionally just draining every time it happened. And I just remember being so jealous of other people that had kids, um, or that would be announcing that they're pregnant. Not that I wasn't, uh, excited for them. I was, but it was a major jealousy factor for me that I was just so upset that I couldn't have kids. And just seeing other people having, that and their children around, that can be really difficult. And I don't think that um, we give enough room sometimes for people to express those emotions, because when you're really trying, Chris and I, when we were doing the ovulation test, and then, just checking to see where you're at, and then your period comes, it's all really emotional and it's really draining. Um, so we are a success story, and I'm so very thankful for that. We have my son, and I will not be having any more kids, but we are so grateful that we have him. But I'd like to hear from other people. What was your journey in this? Did you have some of the other tests? The some of the other things that you can have done. I know that there's different versions of IVF that you can have, or your medications, and I was always worried if I did like Clomid that I would end up having, 3, 4 kids, and that's another fear is, just having too many babies at once can be its own um, kind of realm that I wasn't prepared for either. Definitely one has been enough. But yeah, I'd really like to hear from other people and hear your stories, successes, hardships. We're definitely here to support each other. And thanks for listening to Geriatric Mom.